from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, and with England already having won a Men's World Cup this year in cricket, there is much anticipation for this weekend's Rugby World Cup final against, well, a hefty and physical South African side. And I'll tell you what, England hooker Jamie George is a massive cricket fan, and he's been tapping into players like Jason Roy to find out how he handled the pressure of that World Cup super over and still managed to execute his skills like that final run out. And with a general election announced for the run up to Christmas over here, I would say that sport is once again providing a bit of respite from politics.
Jim Maxwell here for the ABC in Sydney. Back in town, I was actually watching the semi-final between England and the All Blacks at the Hong Kong Cricket Club last Saturday. And what a thrill it was to see them play so well. Whether they can do that again is another question. And I got back home in time to see a copy of the ABC Cricket magazine in my letterbox with, what do you think? Who do you think's on the cover? Steve Smith, yes. Steve Smith's on the cover. So it's nice to be home and chatting to you again after a bit of a break.
Well, Alison, I thought people were talking about England being very hefty and physical. You can't complain about that now, can you? This is Charu Sharma for All India Radio in Bangalore, where the monsoon refuses to leave us. So it's still very overcast and raining. I've just about had it now. Enough. Plenty of cricket news, by the way, in the subcontinent, as always, and we never seem to be short of controversy. So I look forward to talking about it on the show.
Yeah, and it's great to have the band back together again. We've been all over the place in the last few weeks, haven't we? I think we basically finished our Ashes programmes and then just all went travelling at different times. Well, I'd say normal service resumes now with the three of us together. So let's get on to the show. It has been a mixed week for world cricket, good news and bad. Let's start with the uplifting news, and that's Papua New Guinea and Namibia qualifying for the men's 2020 World Cup for the first time. And I bet if you stopped people on the streets of India, Australia and the UK, they probably wouldn't think of either of those countries if you asked them to name a cricketing nation. The bad news, though, in fact, it created shockwaves. That's Bangladesh Test captain Shakib Al Hassan being banned for failing to report corrupt approaches. We're going to hear from one of Shakib's former teammates in a little bit. But seeing as, Jim, you've put us all in a good mood with your travelling tales, so let's focus on the good news to start with. Just have a listen to this. That is the sound of Papua New Guinea's players and coaches. It could have been something from the wilds of the Serengeti where I was the other week. That is the sound of the players and coaches celebrating after reaching the 2020 World Cup in Australia. They put in some stunning performances in the qualifying tournament in the UAE. A couple of days later, they were joined by Namibia, who secured their place with a 54-run win over Oman. And the others to have qualified are Ireland, Netherlands, Scotland and Oman, who have all played at the event before. So, Jim, the ICC have billed the T20 World Cup as the vehicle to globalise the game. It's good then, isn't it, to see a couple of new kids on the block?
Well, it is, although they now have to go through this other qualifying period to get into the event itself. But, it's a stepping stone. And I suppose this is a way of moving the game ahead, other than I've mentioned and others have done so in a number of times, than getting the cricket into the Olympic Games. But that's a bit further down the track. So it's good to see some names there that probably surprised a few people. I think the UAE have fallen backwards significantly, but others have pushed up their head, particularly Papua New Guinea. That was an extraordinary effort.
Yeah, and Charu, when you listen to those celebrations of PNG and Namibia, who have also been through heartbreak in the qualifiers several times over, you can just tell how much this means to associate nations like them.
Yeah, without question. Absolutely. The best part, of course, is, a fair amount of local, or should we say indigenous population plays the game, which is where it's really at. We can't have, expats playing and then moving away. What I do worry about, though, Alison, Jim, is that both the countries are not very populous. And I wonder how they may be able to sustain this standard, because it just goes up and down with generations, leave alone build on it. Because, what we don't want is the situation, what we wouldn't like to see is what happened to Afghanistan in the T50 World Cup, where, they really weren't up to scratch. So I know there's this other tournament still to go, but the T20 World Cup is the summit in terms of cricket popularity. And if the progress of these nations is covered well in the media in their own nations, then it could make a significant difference in how cricket is perceived and carried on as a legacy in Namibia and, of course, particularly in Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, there is this case, though, as Jim was mentioning, the fact that the six teams who have come through this tournament in the UAE effectively, we say they're qualified for the World T20, but they sort of go into another qualifying tournament, if you like, with Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, which takes place in Australia immediately before what you would say is the main event. So this prelim tournament consists of 8 teams in 2 groups of 4, and from that, including obviously Namibia and PNG, only 4 teams will qualify for what's called the Super 12s, which is when the top 8 teams in the World T20 rankings come to life, join the party, and they battle it out then for the trophy. So it means that, say, PNG, the likelihood of them actually coming up against the likes of India, England, or Australia is very, very slim. Is this the best way of globalising the game? And the ICC call the tournament the big dance, but the reality for most teams is that they're unlikely to get past the warm-up routine.
Well, they might fluke a game somewhere along the line, like Canada have done years ago, and Kenya, when they had their good run in 1996. I mean, there have been all sorts of crazy results. So it's an opportunity, isn't it? Even though we're not expecting that these minnows are going to cause regular upsets and get through to the finals, but it's an opportunity. Let's hope that they embrace it.
I think it's pretty unfair on the face of it. However, if there's another, should we say, qualifying sort of set of matches, then it may lead to better or closer contests in the actual T20 World Cup. So there is that to consider, because you don't want only one-sided matches, because as we've mentioned several times before on Stumped, it tends to even set back the game in the country if you lose very badly. But this is like a teaser trailer. I mean, you are through the World Cup and all of a sudden you're not. I mean, if there's one qualifying tournament, the top 5 go through 6, then that should be it, because it's too close and then you don't get a taste of the big thing, and it just could lead to a wave of huge disappointment in the country, saying, well, once again, we're not good enough for the top. So we should just be a little more generous and include them all in the T20 World Cup.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Well, let's get on to news that genuinely sent shockwaves through the cricketing world. An international test captain banned for 2 years for failing to report corrupt approaches. This is Shakib Al Hassan of Bangladesh. He's accepted 3 charges relating to requests for, quotes, inside information for betting purposes. Now, 1 year of his ban is suspended. It means he'll be out until October next year. So it should be available just in time for the T20 World Cup. But Shakib is the world's top-ranked one-day all-rounder. He scored 200s at the 2019 World Cup. I've been speaking to one of his former international teammates, the test opener Sharia Nafis, and I started by asking him how the news had been received in Bangladesh.
It's a massive news, and it is a shocking news. Shakib Al Hassan, the best player of Bangladesh, probably the best talent so far that Bangladesh have produced, one of the greatest all-rounder of the game. It's a huge name, and when you get to know a news regarding Shakib or related to Shakib, and it's kind of not a positive one, it's very shocking for the whole Bangladesh. And yesterday all the people were waiting that when the news is going to come out from ICC, and when it came, people were stunned, they were shocked, and they were very sad.
So there's shock. Is there any sympathy for him? Because he's an international captain, he knows the rules, surely, around reporting instances of suspected corruption approaches.
Now, first of all, I'm going to thank Shakib for this brave move. Yes, he had made a mistake. The players who have been around the international arena or the age level for such a long time, yes, we know that you don't have to do a bad thing. If you don't report, it's an offense, and Shakib also knew. But we haven't got any explanation from Shakib, but I'm pretty sure that he has a definite and strong explanation behind that. He has made a mistake, but the reason I want to thank him, because he has gathered the courage to say to the world that yes, I have made a mistake. It was a very, I'm going to use the word stupid mistake, but I want your support. And if you are asking about the sympathy, the whole country is behind him. The PM, the government, Bangladesh Cricket Board, the fans, all the cricketers, we are supporting Sakib because he's one of our biggest assets. This situation or this occurrence will be a milestone for Bangladesh cricket and the world cricket, that if you make a mistake or if you slip one small step, it can cost you big time. And the coming generation will learn from this mistake.
Yeah, a very high-profile case. It will act as a reminder to others, won't it?
Yes, Shakib Al Hasan, one of the best all-rounders of his time, one of the greatest all-rounder of the all time. And if you can get a name, such a big name, it will be a precedent from now on. I'm very, very sad and very surprised that he knew all the rules and regulations. But as what I said, yes, probably he has a proper explanation why he couldn't report on time. But again, we know Shakib from his childhood. We know that he's a very, very honest person, a very dedicated cricketer for Bangladesh. When he goes out there, he plays his heart out. Sometimes what happens is, yes, sometimes you can feel that, okay, just keep it into myself so that the other team members or I'm not going to bother others. It can happen, but it's very sad, and hopefully he will learn, and we can learn from his mistake from now on.
Well, that's a former Bangladesh Test opener, Shariat Nafees. I thought he spoke very well indeed, really forthright as well with some of his views. He says the whole of Bangladesh supports Shakib, and we've seen demonstrations on the streets in support of a player who is a hero over there. But Jim, Chari, do either of you have any sympathy?
Are there mitigating circumstances? I'm not sure whether there are. This seems to be a terrible error of judgment, apart from anything else.
Well, I actually do have sympathy, because I'm not condoning his silence on these requests for quote unquote insider information for betting purposes. But of course I can't speak on his behalf, and I shouldn't, but perhaps he just wanted to just ignore the seamier side of some, vague acquaintances that there are so many of them hanging around the cricket world. So I don't think anyone can cast aspersions on his personal attitude and performance, but yeah, he certainly set himself for the ICC rule book to be thrown at him, and he has accepted the fallout without protest. But here's something very different. I might have recommended not a one-year ban, because he's I'm not saying he's that old, but towards the end of his career, certainly the latter half. And maybe the purpose would have been better served, because after all, he's not individually, personally guilty of any major crime. He could have been recruited to go around to every team, in world cricket and said, listen, this is what I did. I was wrong. So as a counsellor to all the rest of the cricketers around the world, give him that little sort of community punishment thing that very often happens, rather than ban him for a year.
Yeah, I think he is going to be doing that as part of his suspension and sort of agreement with the ICC, that he will actually, cooperate with them and sort of spread that message. But, what you were saying about him, wanting to ignore a negative side of the game, you just cannot ignore it. And he knows of everybody. He would have been at more briefings than most players because of all his involvement in ICC events. There is just no, it's difficult to understand.
Yeah, I'm not condoning anything. I mean, if it's a rule, it's a rule. But I just sometimes feel that maybe it's a little harsh, this 2-year ban, 1-year suspension.
Well, I think the ICC try to make it as easy as possible for players to report nowadays, and they really drum home. I've seen the video that was played to the players, for example, prior to the 2019 World Cup. It drums in this mantra of recognise, reject and report. And there's an ICC app, which I've even got on my phone, where you literally press a button, you fill out a form, you can report a suspected corrupt approach. And it may sound like a sort of a serious thing to do, but I think then you've got to put your trust and faith in the ICC, that if it is something that they believe is worth investigating, then they will take action. And maybe there will be occasions where they look at the instance and think, no, do you know what? We don't think there's much to worry about there. So, if you're a player who's thinking, gosh, I don't really know whether this is a serious approach or not, just always play it safe. It's not to say something, bad's going to happen to that person if it was all in innocence, but yeah, you've got to look after yourself as a player. There's only so much the ICC can do, and I do believe that they are on the players' side through all this. They're trying to protect them, but the players have got to protect themselves.
Well, I just think that it's clear from what has occurred here that he's accepted 3 charges. He's put his hand up basically and said, I'm guilty as charged. And it's quite clear from the code of conduct and the rest of it, he's infringed. And as I say, I think it's just a bad error of judgment. And for that reason, there has to be some penalty, obviously. And if he can be used to try and prevent it happening elsewhere within his own ranks, wherever, that's a good thing.
Lastly, Charaju, just on the fact of Bangladesh being in India this month for a tour, which is going to feature a day-night test at Eden Gardens. We never thought this was going to happen. I think you thought it was going to be a long way down Sourav Ganguly's list of priorities, but yeah, he's moved pretty quickly on that one.
Well, I knew you'd get to me for that, but it's good to be proven wrong once in a while. It's fantastic. And we've been talking about day-night test matches in India for quite a few years now in Stumped, haven't we all? Yeah, Ganguly has certainly fast-tracked this matter, and I don't mean to be cheeky here, but maybe it's because it's Bangladesh coming to India, due respect, mind you, to Shakib's country. There's been a fair amount of talk in India, of course, about all of a sudden about this day-night thing. And I think one of the major matters being considered is whether SG, who make the official test ball in India, can come up with a pink ball that about replicates or simulates what happens with their red ball. And they say they're just about almost there. But most of the cricketers are, the jury is out because they're saying, yeah, well, it could do a lot to begin with. That is one major matter about how that ball is going to behave, and of course how dirty is it going to get, how the visibility of it all. And as I always maintain, there's a lot of talk on the whole dew factor because it is closing into winter, mid-November, late November in India, and there could be plenty of dew on the ground. So when you go all the way till midnight, great for the spectators, which is why Sourav Ganguly's done this, saying that we need people to come to the test matches in India. Right? Bold move, correct move. But if the dew is excessive and if the pink ball moves around in strange ways, well, yeah, they might have to reconsider a bit as they go along.
That's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped on All India Radio. You can stay in touch with us on Twitter using the hashtag BBC Stumped. My thanks to Chari Sharma and Jim Maxwell, and to you for listening. Join us again next time. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.